Well, it's not just retail that's suffered through the pandemic. It's also been a tough time for companies relying on advertising, as many businesses cut back on their marketing spend. This week, ITV said they saw ad revenue fall by 42% in April. A stalwart of the industry is Sir Martin Sorrell. He's executive chairman of the ad firm S4 Capital, employing 2,500 people across 30 countries, of course, with a career in the industry spanning decades. Good morning to you, Sir Martin. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Good early morning, Kate.
A very early morning indeed, yes. Thanks for getting up. Look, advertising's always been seen as a bit of a bellwether for business confidence.
Right.
I'm just quite interested to know what you're seeing now in your business and in the industry more broadly. How does this compare to previous economic downturns that you've been through?
Well, you can't compare it because it's totally different. It's as close as you can get to wartime. I think it's not like the great financial crisis of 2008, which was financial, or the dot-com bust of 2001-2, or the recession of 91-2. So it's very different. And it's all embracing. Obviously, it starts as a health crisis and a financial crisis and affects everybody, not equally. I think that's not true, that it affects people equally. It affects the poorer and the less resourced far more than the well-resourced, obviously. So very, very different. But where we benefit at S4, being a purely digital firm, is there are three things going on. Firstly, the consumer is shopping online, educating their kids online, communicating online like we are this morning. Secondly, media owners, like the BBC, are moving increasingly from analog to digital. And lastly, and probably most importantly, people who run companies are transforming their businesses digitally even more even faster. Agility is the corporate quality that really is required now, particularly in this environment. So we're benefiting from an escalation and acceleration of digital transformation.
So that's where you're seeing advertising money going, towards digital,
yes,
and away from papers and TV,
yes, the tech companies, which dominate the stock markets and the industry now, the big six: Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, Tencent, Alibaba, TikTok, the latest entrant really from ByteDance. These companies are increasingly taking advertising revenues as people switch from analog to digital. We're seeing that not just amongst the tech companies, but consumer packaged goods companies like Procter & Gamble and Unilever are shifting money online, and pharma companies, which it's a strange thing to say in a crisis, but pharma companies benefit, if you like, from COVID-19 and the emphasis on viruses and vaccines. They're spending money. For example, their sales forces can't reach hospitals and doctors directly now, so they have to use online means to do so. And retail online, grocery necessity sales in America, 31% trial by consumers in America now as compared to 19% a few months ago in 2019. So the marketplace is shifting. And one of your items earlier, and the other thing we're seeing is that our people are 2,500 people, tend to be on the young side, most on a media side, 25 years old, on the content side, around 33 years old. And working at home is nothing new for them. They're digital natives. They're not just digital first. They're people who've been bred and born in the platform companies that I mentioned before rather than agencies, and they're very used to working at home and 24/7 and flexibly. So this change in working patterns is another thing I think we'll see. People don't
So
want
that's going to continue, you think?
Absolutely. And we're already adjusting our office footprint. We're shedding leases and consolidating our properties. We're a little bit different because we only started 21 months ago and we've grown very rapidly. We've added about 11 companies to our organization in 18 months. But what we're doing is trying to integrate our footprint using much more flexible working hours, less fixed commuting time. And our productivity actually, interestingly, in the last 6 weeks has been maintained. I would say actually, from a personal point of view, probably increased. Less time wasted at breakfasts, lunches and dinners and travelling, needless travelling, and focus on it. So these patterns of behaviour are going to change very significantly.
Can I just ask you very briefly, I mean, you compared the pandemic to wartime at the start of this interview.
Yeah.
How do you see this all playing out over the next year? The Bank of England says we're heading for the worst recession, could be heading for the worst recession in 300 years.
Probably so, but I'm in the V-shaped school, if you understand what I mean. I'm much more optimistic. I think
a plummet and then a bounce back up.
Q2 that will be extremely difficult, and we're seeing that with the banks, for example, whose profits are dropping by more than 50%. A Q3 that recovers relatively, and a Q4 that gets better, and then into 2021 it will get better. The other thing about this recession is really interesting is it's happened at warp speed. It's happened very rapidly, much more rapidly than we've ever seen before. And I think a result of that, the bounce back will be back. And don't underestimate the energy, intelligence, and resourcefulness of people, whether it be in Silicon Valley or Boston or Silicon Fen in the UK or Bangalore or Sao Paulo or Buenos Aires. Yeah. There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of intelligence, and I think the system will adapt. So
we'll have to leave it there.
I don't be over-optimistic, but I think it'll be optimistic.
Thank you so much for joining us so early, Martin Sorrell there.